Hello and welcome once again to my YouTube channel. My name is Shreyansh Vinod, and as promised yesterday, I have come back to analyze the conflict unfolding in Ukraine today. Today, I will be talking about one specific issue. I will choose one issue and I will talk about it in length. Of course, there will be many subtopics, but today my method will be to talk only about one particular issue rather than laying out the context for this conflict and giving you the historical background, taking you back to 16th century or even taking you back to 2013. I will not be doing any such thing today. What I will do is I will focus on this conflict that is raging on since last 32 days. As I said just now, one issue, I will analyze it from different angles. There will be many subtopics, but there will be one broader topic that I will be focusing on. So my topic today will be the choice options of Putin and how this war is developing till now and where we stand today. So the topic is, has Putin achieved his objectives in Ukraine? On 24th of February, when Putin said that he was launching a special military operation against Ukraine, he had few objectives in his mind. What were those objectives? Number one objective, in the words of Putin, was to denazify Ukraine. What does denazifying Ukraine mean? It means toppling the government, pushing out Volodymyr Zelenskyy from the presidential palace and installing a president who is pro-Kremlin. Has Russia achieved in this objective of denazifying Ukraine? The answer is an absolute no. Volodymyr Zelenskyy is not only the president of Ukraine at this time, he is not only continuing as the head of government of his country, but all other part of the government is functioning. The Parliament of Ukraine is sitting every day, though maybe underground. We do not have much information about it because they keep tweeting the images of parliament sitting, but where exactly they are sitting we do not know. So number one objective of Putin of flushing Nazis, so-called Nazis, out of Ukraine has failed. What was the second objective of Putin? The second objective of Russia under Putin, to my mind, was to pummel Ukraine so badly that it kneels down before Russia and begs for negotiation. This objective too till now has not been achieved, though Zelenskyy has offered to talk to Putin directly or through Macron, the president of France, but Ukraine is not surrendering to the whims and fancies of Putin at this point of time. Zelenskyy has made it clear that he will not be surrendering even an inch of Ukrainian territory to Russian forces. So second objective of Russian forces to make lightning speed progress inside Ukraine, that too has stalled, that too has not been achieved. What was the third objective of Russian military or Putin? The third objective to my mind was to make a statement to other Baltic countries. Russia, by choosing Ukraine as a target, illegitimate or legitimate, that is a debate for another day, by choosing Ukraine as a target, it was trying to send a message to its other neighbors, be it Georgia, be it other countries in the Black Sea region, which we call the Baltic nations. The message that Russia wanted to deliver was that you cannot go against our wish. You cannot afford to cross the red line. And what was that red line? That you have to be in the sphere of Russian influence. You cannot flirt with the Western powers. Forget about thinking about joining NATO and European Union. You cannot even have cultural intercourse with these countries. You remain neighbor of Russia. You cannot deny the geography and you have to submit to Emperor Putin. That objective too at this moment appears to be completely collapsing, as many small countries in the Baltic region, the Baltic countries, they are not only openly taking stand against Putin, but they have also begun talking about joining NATO and European Union. Of course, these talks of joining NATO and European Union, it's much immature and it is not going anywhere in the foreseeable future, but the very mention of European Union and NATO by these countries have set the cat among the pigeons in Russia. Russia was hoping to demoralize these small countries. It wanted to make Ukraine an example in front of everyone. Look what we did to them. We can do exactly the same to you. Submit to us. But no, these countries said, you might have done huge damage to Ukraine. You might have inflicted huge pain to Ukraine, but the Ukrainian people stood up to you. They chose honor rather than surrendering their rights and honor to you. So, third objective of Russia, to bully its neighbor into submission. That objective too has not been achieved. What could have been the fourth objective of Putin when he decided to launch offensive against Ukraine? Fourth objective to my mind, if you ask me that what was going on in Putin's mind when he decided to send his troops into Ukraine, I believe that Putin wanted to force Western countries to come and talk to him. Remember, since 2013-2014, when Russia annexed eastern Ukraine, parts of eastern Ukraine which we call Donbass comprises of Donetsk and Luhansk. Since that time, Putin has been a global pariah. He has been boycotted not only politically and diplomatically but also culturally. Remember that no big leader from any important country has visited Russia in last 8-9 years. So Putin has been completely isolated. He has been turned into a global pariah. He knows this. So when he was launching offensive against Ukraine, he wanted to force Western powers to talk to him. In simple language, it is a childish behavior of a man-child throwing tantrums. You don't talk to me, I'm going to throw a stone at your home and you will talk to me. Beta, what's going on? Or friend, could we please talk? So this is a childish behavior of a man-child who wanted to hoodwink Western powers into talking to him. That may have been his fourth objective of forcing Western powers to come to Russia or to invite Russia to the negotiating table, talking table, and have a chat with Putin. But that objective at this moment too appears to have failed. That has not been achieved. These were the four objectives of Putin in the beginning of the war. And if you look at these objectives, conquering Ukraine, denazifying Ukraine, besieging Kiev, flushing out the Nazis from Ukraine, installing a puppet regime in Kiev, they have all failed. Bullying your neighbors into submitting to your whims and fancies, sending a message to the Baltic nation to not flirt with the Western powers, objective has not been achieved. Forcing Western powers to come to you and talk to you, forcing Western powers to invite you to the talking table, objective has not been achieved. What other objectives might have been in Putin's mind? The other objective might have been to convince his own people, the Russian people, in his supremacy and infallibility. Putin, in the beginning of the conflict, calculated that his military was far more superior than Ukraine. Remember, Ukraine doesn't have offensive firepower, it doesn't have offensive military capacity, it has defensive capacity, and that defensive capability has been built only over last 8 years when Western powers like Great Britain and America started supplying Ukraine with defensive weapon system, be it Stinger missile, anti-aircraft missile, or anti-tank missile, anti-armor missile, or things like that. All these were in defensive in nature. So Putin's calculation in the beginning of the war was that because Ukraine doesn't have the offensive military capacity, it will be a very easy job for my military to move into Ukraine, make swift progress, capture cities after cities, hold a gun to Zelensky's head and say, negotiate with me, and then I can sell that achievement back at my home, tell people I'm your supreme leader, I'm infallible guy. If not worship, then at least have complete faith in me. If not lift me to the level of God, then at least you should be seeing me as a he-man who can make no mistake and who can never lose any war of any nature or any kind, be it diplomatic war with the West or be it military war with Ukraine. But mind you, that objective too has failed. Why? In last 1 month, we are seeing Russian people coming out on a street and protesting against their own president. So why is this news a big news? We all know that this war was a war of Putin and not a Russian war. The Russian people were not too keen on this war because of their cultural ties with Ukraine. There are thousands of Russian people who live in Ukraine, and there are thousands of Ukrainians living in Russia, and they have family ties. So there is fraternity between the Ukrainian and Russian people. So of course it was obvious in the very beginning that the Russian people were not too keen on this war. It was a war primarily of Putin. So why this news of people coming out, if not in thousands, then in hundreds, and protesting against Putin? Why is this news important? This is important for one particular reason. Remember, Russia is right now under draconian law. Putin has said that if anyone used the word war for the situation in Ukraine, then he or she could be jailed for a minimum of 15 years. It's not only about being jailed for 15 years. Remember, if you are living in a country like Russia, Iran, China, North Korea, you can disappear overnight. And who knows what could happen? A bullet could go through your head. Nobody will even know. The judiciary is controlled completely by the party. The police system and the intelligence system is completely controlled by the party. There are no institutions in place in Russia to safeguard your fundamental rights. You do not have any fundamental right. So in such a situation, if people come out even in their hundreds, that's a big news. It means that people are losing their faith and hope in Putin. Second reason why this news is big is because since 2012, we have not seen common Russians coming out on the street. The last time we saw protest in Moscow was back in 2012 when Putin rigged the election and came back as president of came back as president of Russia for third straight term. People came out on the street at that time because video of ballot box being stuffed with pro-Putin vote surfaced. People had a smartphone and those videos emerged. Since 2012, we had not seen protest in Moscow except twice when girls belonging to a group which they call Pussy Riot group, when they came out and protested against Putin, they were jailed. We don't know what happened to few of the group members. Except that group, nobody had the audacity to speak against Putin. So after 2012, after more than 10 years, we are for the first time seeing common Russian people hitting the street and protesting against Putin. So another of his objective that he might have had in his mind when he launched the offensive against Ukraine to convince his people in his own infallibility and invincibility, that objective too has not been realized. So can we, at this point of time when we are 32 days into the war, can we say Russia has lost the war? If you ask me, I will say Russia has lost the war. Of course, you can argue, or there are many people who will say that how could you say that when Ukraine has been badly damaged? Remember one thing. Military victory is never defined by the kind of destruction you unleash on your opponent. Military victory is always defined by meeting of your objectives. Anytime or anywhere, whenever you decide to launch a military operation, you first need to have proper objectives in your mind. Remember, when India decided to interfere in East Pakistan in 1971, we had a clear objective in our mind. We have to create Bangladesh. We achieved that objective. Remember, the Pakistani forces unleashed unimaginable violence on their own people. They killed people in not thousands. There are many estimates which puts the number at million. Can we say Pakistan won because it killed 1 million people or 1.5 million people in East Pakistan? No, because they were not able to stop India from creating another country. So the objective of Pakistan was to stop Indian army from creating another country out of their country, and India's objective was to create East Pakistan out of the entire Pakistan. We achieved our objective without unleashing such kind of violence. Pakistan could not, so we won. As simple as that. In 1999, what was the objective of Indian army? We did not cross the international border, remember, when the Kargil war took place. Our objective was to flush out infiltrators from the heights of the Kargil mountains. We were able to flush them out in 40 days, and that's why we won, because we met our objectives without crossing the border. So it is not about crossing the border and burning cities, looting and indulging in rapine. It's not about killing people in their thousands and burning cities after cities, because that is not the right definition of victory in a war. That is definition of Hitler. It was Hitler who asked his General Rommel, is Paris burning? These kind of things are done by dictators and madmen, not by democratic or sane people. So if Putin is burning cities after cities in Ukraine, and if that makes you think that he is winning the war in Ukraine, your understanding of war and what goes into making a war is flawed. War is defined by objective, and victory in war is defined by meeting and achieving your objectives. All the objectives that I mentioned just now, Russia has not been able to achieve a single of these objectives even after 32 days of war. What was the analysis done by the military experts of Russia in the beginning of the war? Putin believed that he will be at the doorstep of Kiev in 3 days. He took more than 15 days to be at the doorstep of Kiev. And what was his estimate of war coming to an end? He thought that the entire war will be over in 15 days. Dear Putin, we are 32 days into war and the war is still raging and it is looking like a stalemate. If a country like Ukraine could stop you in your track, if your entire military operation could be stalled by an army which didn't even have offensive weapon, then what do you call it? Do you call it stalemate? Do you call it victory? Or do you call it a loss? An outright defeat? I call it a defeat. It totally depends on you. How do you read the situation? So this is the situation at this moment. The war in Ukraine has entered a new phase which we can call war of attrition. It is a stalemate and both the armies are staying put in their dug trenches, and none of them, neither Ukraine nor Russia, is able to make any forward thrust. And this is the reason why I am calling this war a complete disaster for Putin, and this is the reason why I am saying Putin has lost the war in Ukraine. Now let me shift my attention to other issues. I have talked about the objectives of Russia that they had in their mind in the beginning of the war and how they have not been able to achieve even one of those objectives. Now I will shift my focus to other areas of this war and talk in little detail, not complete detail, but I will try to put a spotlight on other developments related to this war. So let me come to other things related to this war. What is the situation of Putin at this moment at his home? Has he become more popular, or is his popularity at its rock bottom? Or if not at the rock bottom, then it might have gone a bit down compared to time before the invasion. The news that is coming out from Russia and the news that is not coming out of Russia, Both are very discouraging for Putin and Putin supporters. Why? Look, when I say that news that is coming out, we know that there are reporters on the ground in Russia. There are few independent newspapers like the Moscow Times. It is a prime target of Kremlin. So we know that what kind of news is coming out. But what are the news not coming out, and why the news that is not coming out is more important than the news coming out? So first, let me talk about the news that came out of Kremlin, Russia, in last 1 week. We were told that President Putin wanted to address his people, but one surprising thing that bewildered everyone in the world was that he didn't have enough people to listen to him. He wanted to address his nation, but number of people was not enough to hold a rally. So his henchmen, his yes men, his coterie was ordered to bus in people from different locations of Russia. These poor people from different cities, from second, third class cities. When I say second, third class cities, what I mean is not the metropolitan cities. I'm not talking about Moscow, and I'm not talking about the cities which are affluent. I'm talking about the lower middle class cities. People were bussed in from these cities. They were promised to be given few rubles. They were taken to Putin's rally. If they agreed to go there, they would be given some money. What does it mean? The economic sanction put by Western government has taken a toll in Russia, and the poverty is increasing very fast. Second, what is the interpretation of this? It means that Putin has to buy his people's ears. Nobody is willing to listen to him voluntarily. He has to pay people to listen to him, which means his popularity is on a downhill. He is not becoming more popular. He is becoming more infamous, and he is being looked at as somebody who has created this economic mess in Russia. What else do you see? How else do you interpret this situation? Another interpretation of this event could be that people who are tasked with busing in people from different locations, these people too have lost touch with their own support base. Why? Because people who came to listen to Putin, they collected their money and then they started going out of the stadium. So Putin's government had to put in police outside the stadium so that people do not leave without listening to Putin. These developments in Russia shows very clearly that Putin is in trouble. When it comes to his own home turf, when it comes to his home audience, he is not going anywhere. He is losing the war in Ukraine, and he is losing the war of perception in his own country. Second most important thing that I would like to mention is that when Putin was speaking to people, one thing that caught attention of everyone in the world was something tucked inside his t-shirt. He was dressed very sharply and he wanted to look like a teenage boy, not a 69-year-old man. Putin always wanted to project an image of power, of bravado, of virility. He's not a 69-year-old man. He's rather, 18, 19, in early 20s youth who is fighting for his motherland. So wearing a jeans and t-shirt, he came to address his people. But inside his t-shirt, there was something tucked in. And further analysis tells us that it was a bulletproof jacket. What does it mean? It means that Putin is not sure about his own people. He is under threat. His life is under threat. He has become cynical. He has become skeptical about everyone around him. Imagine a situation where Biden decides to address his country, where he wants to talk to his people, and he asks his Democrat senators to bus in people from different parts of America. When these people come to Washington, anywhere, Lincoln Park or anywhere else, Biden walks to talk to them, and inside his suit there is a bulletproof jacket hidden. What does it mean? That Biden is not sure where the bullet will come from. He is not able to trust his own people. It will be a big news when the leader loses touch with his or her own masses. It means his days or her days as the head of a state is numbered. There is no other interpretation of this. Uh, what else tells us that Putin is in trouble? Putin's body language in last 20 days, it has changed very significantly. It has changed dramatically, I would say. In the beginning of the war, he was smiling, cocky smile when he was asking his ministers and his secretaries to come to the podium and speak, and he kept interrupting those secretaries and defense minister and other ministers. And he was looking like a man in charge of the affair. Today, if you look at him, he doesn't look like a man in charge. He is sitting on a long table, a table as long as 25-30 feet, abnormally long. On one side is Putin sitting, on the other far end is his minister, his secretaries are sitting. Face of Putin betrays not only anger but frustration. There is a huge mark under his eyes, which means he might not have slept for a very long time. His face, which earlier looked ruddy and red, projecting an image of health and virility, now those faces are looking puffed as if he had been punched. There could be two reasons behind this. Either he has gone through medical procedures to beautify himself, which he keeps doing, Botox and all those things, artificially increasing the glow on his face. He has been accused of this. Or the second reason could be that because the war in Ukraine is not going the way he intended it to go, he is not able to sleep, and he is not sure if he retains his support base in the Kremlin or not. This is eating into him and he is not able to sleep. Remember one thing, Putin's hold on power is purely because of incestuous relationship between Kremlin's official and the oligarchs. There is a quid pro quo between Putin and his yes men. I will be in power, support me, let me continue to be president of Russia, and I will let all of you loot the natural resource of Russia. You could be billionaire, you could be even trillionaire, you could live anywhere in the world, you could live in posh Wimbledon, London, or you could live in New York. I don't care as long as you support me. Western sanctions have started taking its toll on Russian economy. Russian economy is faltering at this time. Oligarchs are losing their money. They are bleeding through their nose. If the billionaires, the rich people, the oligarchs with whom Putin had incestuous relationship to maintain his power, if they start losing their money, why would they support Putin? So now we are looking at a situation where there might be a Brutus in Kremlin who might be willing to plunge his dagger into Putin's heart and say, hey, enough is enough, and we do not need you now because you have not been able to deliver us from our misery. You promised us that you will restore the glorious days of USSR. You failed there. We knew that you will fail there, but at least you should have safeguarded our own interest. Your people who made sure that you continue to be in this post for a very long time. You have not been able to safeguard even our interest. So why should we support you? So Putin might be under threat, live threat from under his own men, and that's why we are seeing such kind of tantrums when he is speaking, talking of putting his nuclear forces on alert and things like that. So if you look at the picture in a holistic manner, then you will see Putin is a man who is not in charge of the affair, who is not in control of the affair. He is a man whose plot is unraveling, and he is a man who is quickly losing not only his support base but also the support that came from other quarters like the military and the oligarchs. All the objectives failed. Putin's popularity on a downhill. His calculation that if he threatens Europe with a war in Ukraine, they will come begging for a talk with him. that too has failed. He has not been able to convince the Baltic nation to listen to him. This objective has also failed. So at this point of time, what is the conclusion that we can draw from the Russian war in Ukraine? There is only one conclusion. Putin is on his way out. His days as president of Russia, his days are numbered. It's only a matter of time when he will be pulled down from his pedestal. It's not a question of why, because I have told you why it will happen. It's now a question of only when. So now the war has entered another phase, which we can call war of attrition. It's a stalemate. This war is not going to come to an end in few days or a few weeks. It is going to take at least a couple of months or 3 months for any kind of agreement or negotiation to happen. During those time, the Russian people, common people and the business community, they will keep bleeding economically and financially, and we will see revolt against Putin coming from within Russia, not from outside. That's my analysis of war in Ukraine today. That is 27th of March 2022. How situation will develop, how things could change in next few days, we do not know, because we will be analyzing the situation as we get different reports from different quarters. We will go through the reports, we will see we will try to draw the right conclusion by looking at the evidence that we have at this moment. The evidence that we have at this moment suggests that the objectives of Putin have come to a knot in Ukraine, and he at this point of time is looking like a failure. That's my analysis. Thanks for watching, and I would repeat myself, if you liked the video, please do not forget to like the video. Press the like button. If you didn't like it, you are free to press the dislike button. If you think the analysis of all the things that I keep doing on my video channel is apt and you would like to listen to me even in future, don't forget to subscribe the channel. And if you think that whatever I am doing should reach the larger audience, you should share the link of this video. Thanks for watching. I appreciate your patience. Sabak hai, bye bye.